Osita had to pick up his life, and went about like everything was fine as normal. He went for his business as he usually does. After returning back from a business meeting, Osita was tired, and went to freshen up. He was ready to sleep after a long day. Then his phone rang. It was Obina. It was then he realized they hadn't spoken in a while, because they both had busy schedules. The two friends rekindled, and spoke for a long time. It was then Obina invited Osita for his birthday party that he will be hosting in one of his mansions. Osita promised his friend that he will be attending his party. They both said goodbye and called it a night. After some days, it was the day for the birthday celebration. One of Obina's mansion was used for hosting the spectacular event. The venue looked more like a royal palace than a private residence. Sprawling manicured gardens, marble fountains, and a security checkpoint suggested this was no ordinary party. It wasn't just a party, it was a statement of wealth, of power, of everything Obina had achieved. The party had all the big shots, celebrities, creme de la creme in attendance. They had so much fun and reconnected again. After the birthday celebration, Obina and Osita's bond returned to how it used to be. Every weekend, they hosted the most talked about parties. They were living their best life. Their garage housed a collection of luxury cars, Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, Ferraris, and more. They traveled the world together, staying in presidential suites and dining at the most expensive restaurants. "Life is perfect, my brother," Obina would often say, raising his glass of aged whiskey as they relaxed by his pool. "We have everything money can buy." But there was always something missing. The Brotherhood's strict rules about women meant their massive mansions felt empty despite the expensive furniture and art pieces. One fateful evening, Osita decided to try a new restaurant alone while Obina was away on a business meeting. As he studied the menu, he perceived a nice fragrance that drew his attention. He looked up to see a woman that made his heart skip a beat. She wore a simple but elegant dress, and her smile lit up the entire room. "Sorry, is this seat taken?" she asked, pointing to the chair across him. The restaurant was packed, and most tables were full. "No, please join me," Osita replied. "Hi, my name is Isabella, and I am a lawyer. And you are?" He introduced himself. As they talked over dinner, Osita felt something he hadn't experienced in years: genuine happiness. Isabella was different from the women who usually tried to catch his attention at clubs. She was intelligent and compassionate. "Let me give you my number," she said as they finished dinner, "in case you will like to continue our conversation sometime." That night, Osita couldn't sleep. He knew he was playing with fire. The Brotherhood's rules were clear: no romantic relationships. The consequences of breaking this rule were severe. He had seen what had happened to brothers who tried to defy these rules. But he couldn't help himself. He called Isabella the next day, and they began meeting secretly. Lunch date, in obscure parts of town, quiet restaurants where they wouldn't be recognized, private beaches far from town. With each meeting, Osita fell deeper in love. Keeping this secret from Obina was the hardest part. They had never hidden anything from each other before. But Osita knew his friend's unwavering loyalty to the Brotherhood would compel him to report any violation of their rules. "You seem different lately," Obina observed, one evening during their usual drinks. "More distracted." "Just tired and stressed from work." "It's nothing, I will be fine," Osita lied, feeling guilty for deceiving his best friend. The deception became increasingly difficult as his relationship with Isabella deepened. She began asking questions about his life, his work, why they could only meet in secret. The weight of his lies pressed heavily on his conscience. "There's something you're not telling me," Isabella said during one of their secret dates. "I feel like you're living two different lives." She had no idea how accurate that observation was. By day, he was simply a man in love, trying to capture moments of normal life with Isabella. By night, Osita was a powerful Brotherhood member, participating in dark rituals and mysterious business dealings. Osita's family were doing so well. The youngest daughter, Ifi, was already rounding up her studies in the university, and she came back to spend the holidays with her parents in the village. Ifi had developed into a very beautiful, intelligent and elegant young lady. and she performed excellently in her studies. Ify enjoyed herself during her holidays, visiting her parents or her brother in the city. She also got interest in fashion designing, so during her holidays, she would go to her mother's shop and learn how to make clothes. Mrs. Adana was happy that her daughter showed interest in her line of business. Their parents' businesses kept growing, they became very recognized in their village and the neighboring villages. But with all this success, Mrs. Adana was disturbed. She kept thinking why her only son didn't want to get married and start up his own family. She decided to take matters into her hands. She started looking out for a decent and responsible lady for her son. Then she noticed a beautiful young lady named Oni, who happened to be the daughter of her longtime friend from their hometown. She got across to Oni's parents. They were so excited about Mrs. Adana's decision because everyone wanted to be associated with the Amaka's family. They promised to talk to their daughter about it and get back to her. In the evening of the same day, Oni's parents sat her down to have the conversation. They informed her of what they had discussed with Mrs. Adana. She was so happy and couldn't hide her joy. Most girls in the village wanted to be Osita's or Obina's wife. They wanted to live in the mansion they have been seeing pictures of. After a few days, Oni's mom paid the Amaka's family a visit and told Mrs. Adana of the good news that her daughter is ready to be Osita's wife. The both mothers celebrated and called themselves in-laws. They also came up with a plan that Mrs. Adana should go with Oni to the city to Osita's house and introduce them and make sure they fix a wedding date. The both mothers danced and celebrated the union ahead. After some days, it was time for their trip to the city to see Osita. Oni woke up very early. That day, she did all her house chores because she was very excited to meet her soon-to-be husband. She already packed a few clothings the day before the journey. Oni's mum sat her down the previous day and told her to act like a good girl raised from a respectable family. She also encouraged her to cook all the delicious meals to impress Osita. Oni listened carefully to her mum and assured her she would make her proud and win Osita's heart. The time was 10 a.m. in the morning, and Oni was ready and waiting for Mrs. Adana to come take her to the city. She had a mix of emotions. She was excited for the new chapter of her life, but she was also scared that Osita might not want a normal village girl like her. But she always remained hopeful that everything between the both of them will work smoothly. 2 hours later, Mrs. Adana's driver drove her car into their compound. Oni and her parents were excited to see her. They welcomed her to their home warmly, and within minutes of greetings and talking, Mrs. Adana and Oni were ready for the journey to the city. Oni embraced her family and assured them they will always be in communication. Her parents blessed her, and they were already off to start the journey. The journey to the city was a long but comfortable one. The car was so relaxing, and the air conditioning was really nice. This was the first time Oni was leaving the village, so she enjoyed the view of all the places she had not seen before. Mrs. Adana made sure Oni was comfortable, and she made sure she bought nice snacks and drinks for the journey. Oni couldn't believe how lucky she was to have been chosen by Mrs. Adana to marry her son. She was indeed grateful. After hours on the road to the city, they finally arrived at a big luxurious estate. Oni could not believe her eyes. The house looked like houses she had watched in America movies. The gateman opened the door for them and greeted Mrs. Adana. She got to find out that her son was out for a meeting. So she and Oni went ahead to enter the mansion and wait for Osita. Oni was so amazed by the house she entered. It was the most beautiful house she had seen. Mrs. Adana called the maid to show Oni to one of the rooms. Oni, my dear, go freshen up and feel at home. This is your husband's house. When you are done, the chef will prepare you anything you want to eat, said Mrs. Adana. Oni smiled and went ahead to freshen up. After she was done, she returned back to the sitting room and found Mrs. Adana relaxing and watching TV. She went to join her. Mrs. Adana asked her to the dining table, where there was a variety of different delicious meals. The food looked like it was prepared for royalty. She remembered she had not told her parents that they arrived safely in the city, so she asked Mrs. Adana if she could possibly use her phone to call her parents. Mrs. Adana gave Oni her phone to make the call and told her she would get her a phone to help her communicate with her family. Oni was so happy and she thanked her for her kindness. They enjoyed their meal, and afterwards Mrs. Adana showed Oni around the beautiful mansion. Each room looked more glamorous than the other. Oni could already imagine herself in elegant dresses being the madam of the home. It was then Osita stepped into the house. He was told by his gate man that his mother was around. He was surprised, because his mum didn't inform him that she was coming. He went upstairs to drop his bag. In his room then, he saw his mum. For a moment he didn't notice the lady standing beside mum. He greeted his mum and she welcomed him. "My dear son, did you see the beautiful lady that I brought with me? She is your wife-to-be. I took my time in picking the best girl for you. She will take care of you, respect and honor you, and she is a very good cook too." Before Osita could respond, Mrs. Adana asked Oni to go ahead and greet her husband. Oni rushed and knelt down. "You are welcome, my husband. My husband, how was your day?" Osita couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. Without responding to the lady talking to him, he quickly excused himself and went to his room. Mrs. Adana told Oni not to worry, that her son was just tired from his busy day at work. She told Oni to go to her room and get some rest. It was late, and they were both tired from the long journey, so they went to sleep. The next day, Oni woke up and went to greet Mrs. Adana in her room. She also told her she wanted to make breakfast. Mrs. Adana told her to meet the domestic staffs to direct her on where to get everything she might need to prepare the meal. Osita woke up and remembered how his mother brought a strange lady for him to marry. The thought of facing his mother again made him feel weak. He heard a knock on the door. It was his mum. "Hi mum." He opened the door for her and greeted her. "Osita, my son, I hope you slept well. I want you to take your bath, dress up, and come see your wife. I am sure you saw how beautiful she is. I don't know if you remember my old friend, Mama Neni. Oni is her last daughter and she just finished her secondary education in the village. Oni is a very responsible girl and she would make a good wife to you." Before Mrs. Adana could proceed, Osita interrupted. "Mummy, please, I have told you so many times that I am not interested in getting married for now. The important thing for me now is to focus on growing my businesses and taking care of you, Papa and my siblings." Mrs. Adana stood up angrily. "Why do you always keep on making excuses about getting married? Osita, you are not getting any younger, and your father and I want to see our grandchildren. The Lord has blessed you with so much wealth, and you have taken care of us, your family, and we appreciate you, my son. But it is time you start your own family and get married to a good woman that will take good care of you." "Mummy, I am sorry, but I am not ready to get married now, so I advise you to go and tell that girl you brought here to go back to her house, because she is only wasting her time. I am not ready to marry her or any other woman for now." Osita left to the bathroom angrily. He felt sad that he had to talk to his mum that way. He knew the importance of him getting married as the only son of his parents and having his own children to continue the family legacy. It was now that the burden of his sacrifice in the Brotherhood seemed too hard to keep. For some time he had been yearning to have his own family. Oni finished preparing a delicious breakfast and arranged the plates neatly for them to eat. Mrs. Adana came to the dining area and Oni asked if she can go call Osita to join them, but Mrs. Adana told her that he will come downstairs once he is ready. Osita packed a small suitcase with few clothings and made his way downstairs to leave the house. Mrs. Adana was surprised to see him going out. She called him back. "Osita, where are you going to?" "Mummy, I have an urgent business trip. I have to go now or I would miss my flight because of the traffic on the road." Mrs. Adana tried to convince Osita to stay and spend some time with Oni, but Osita left the house in a hurry. After some days, Mrs. Adana was on the phone with Osita. She asked him when he will be back. That was when Osita broke the news to his mom that he won't be coming back to the house until Oni leaves his house. His mother tried convincing him. Osita excused himself and told his mother that he had to return back to work. Mrs. Adana waited for some days and saw there was no sign of Osita coming back. She didn't want her business to suffer due to her absence in the village, so Mrs. Adana had to sit Oni down and told her what was going on, but she still assured her that Osita will be her husband. She told her they only needed to get back to the village and have better preparations before coming back. Oni felt so heartbroken after hearing all this. She had already started getting used to her new, comfortable lifestyle. She tried to believe in Mrs. Adana, and she was hopeful that Osita will change his mind and accept her as his wife. The journey back to the village this time seemed longer than normal because they weren't happy after Osita disappointed them and scattered their plans. Oni's face showed the disappointment she felt, but she tried to pretend everything was fine because she didn't want to bother Mrs. Adana. Mrs. Adana barely spoke a word. She felt embarrassed over what her son did. She lacked the words to tell Oni, but when she finally spoke to Oni, she reassured her that she will talk to her son and find a solution that will benefit her. When they finally arrived at the village, the driver stopped at Oni's house. Mama Neni, Oni's mum, was at home, and she heard the car come into the compound. Mama Neni was excited to see Mrs. Adana and her daughter, but when she saw their faces looking dull, she was confused. Mrs. Adana spoke to Mama Neni in private. "My dear friend, I am sorry, but I will need some time to convince my son to marry Oni. She is a wonderful girl, and if it was up to me, I would marry her for my son. But you know the youths of these days, they like to make their own decisions. But I give you my word that I won't give up until my son accepts your daughter as his wife. In this envelope is a check of 500,000 naira. Please use it to take care of your family and my daughter-in-law. I will keep communicating with you." Mama Neni felt sad at first, but when she saw the amount of money Mrs. Adana gave her, she thanked her so much and she was very happy. Mrs. Adana went back to her house to rest after the long journey from the city. She met her husband at home. He welcomed her and she went ahead to get some rest. Osita returned back to his house when he found out his mother and the lady she brought to his house had gone back to the village. He was relieved that his plan worked, and he went about his normal daily activities. Back in another city, in Nigeria, Amaka, the second child of the Amaka family, now thrived as a medical doctor at a good health private hospital. She looked elegant with her white coat and her stethoscope hanging around her neck. She relocated to a new city when she got an offer for a medical job from one of the top private hospitals in the country. Her family was in support of her decision because they knew the hospital was a renowned facility with top doctors in the country working there. They knew Amaka would excel at her new place of work. Amaka was always known by her colleagues as a very nice and dedicated doctor. She was very passionate in pediatric medicine. Amaka loved children a lot, so she specialized in pediatrics. Amaka was loved by everyone in the hospital because she is intelligent, compassionate, and generally a beautiful lady. Dr. Daniel Nosu, the 38-year-old medical director of Good Health Hospital, has noticed Amaka from the moment she joined the hospital staff. Daniel was a tall, handsome man. Dr. Daniel worked his way to the position of medical director. He was passionate and excellent with his work as a doctor. He was everything a successful medical professional could aspire to be. Their first significant interaction came during a complex surgery. A young child with a rare blood disorder was fighting for survival, and the operating room was tense with anticipation. Daniel was leading the medical team, with Amaka as his primary assistant. Her movements were precise, her focus absolute. Dr. Daniel was impressed by her skill. After hours of delicate work, they successfully stabilized the patient. As they removed their surgical materials, their eyes met. Daniel was struck by Amaka's beauty and determination. "Exceptional work, Dr. Amaka," he said with his voice filled with genuine admiration. Amaka, always professional, simply nodded. "The patient's recovery is what matters." Dr. Daniel. Over the months, Daniel found ways to work closely with Amaka. He was impressed by her medical skills, but he was also developing feelings for her. During a hospital charity event, he watched her present a research project about improving child healthcare in rural Nigerian communities. Her passion was evident in every word, every gesture. She spoke with such conviction that the donors were completely captivated. As the event concluded, Daniel approached her. "Impressive presentation," he said with a warm smile. Amaka turned, slightly surprised. "Thank you, sir." "Call me Daniel," he responded smoothly. Would you be interested in discussing your research over dinner? Her response was immediate and cool. I prefer to keep our relationship professional, Dr. Daniel. But Daniel was patient. He understood that Amaka was not a woman to be easily won. Her dedication to her work, her independence, and her strong personality were part of what made her extraordinary. Weeks turned into months. Daniel ensured their interactions remained professional, offering constructive feedback, recommending her for challenging cases, and supporting her professional growth. Amaka began to see a different side of Daniel. He wasn't just her boss, he was a mentor who genuinely cared about her professional development. His recommendations had helped her secure a significant research grant, and his guidance was invaluable. One particularly challenging night, a major road accident brought multiple critical patients to the hospital. Amaka was exhausted, but refused to show it, working alongside Daniel with remarkable composure and skill. As dawn broke and the last patient was stabilized, Daniel noticed Amaka looking pale and tired. Without a word, he brought her a cup of strong coffee and a sandwich. "You need to take care of yourself too, doctor," he said softly. Something in his tone made Amaka's heart flutter, but she quickly composed herself. During a medical conference in Port Harcourt, they were scheduled to present joint research on pediatric surgical innovations. Their presentation was flawless, their professional chemistry obvious to everyone in the room. After the conference, during a private moment, Daniel finally expressed his true feelings. "Amaka," he said, his voice serious yet tender, "I'm not just attracted to your beauty. I admire your mind, your passion, your dedication. You're extraordinary, both as a doctor and as a person. I want you to be my girlfriend. I want something serious with you that can lead to marriage. You are the perfect woman for me." For the first time, Amaka saw vulnerability in the always confident Dr. Daniel. Her carefully constructed professional barriers began to crumble. "Dr. Daniel, you are a good and kind man. Your dedication to your work is so inspirational, and I am convinced that you will make a very good partner. Yes, I will be your girlfriend," said Dr. Amaka. Dr. Daniel was so excited and he hugged Dr. Amaka. "I promise to treat you very special, my dear. Thank you for making me a happy man." Daniel and Amaka's relationship was a beautiful one to behold. They were seen always happy together. In the hospital, they went for dates regularly, and their love continued to grow stronger by each passing day. Amaka informed her parents through calls about the new man in her life. They were happy for her, and they told her they would like to see the doctor who has captured their daughter's heart. It was weekend, and Osita wanted to relax from the busy week. So he placed a call across to Obina to confirm if he was home. Obina confirmed his availability. Obina quickly asked his domestic staff to prepare a delicious meal for his friend. When Osita arrived, they both enjoyed the meal and relaxed to watch some football. Osita told his friend everything that happened with his mother and how she brought a lady for him to marry from the village. Obina also said his own mother tried a lot of times to matchmake him with different girls, but he always turned them down. "The pressure from my mum to settle down was a lot. That is the main reason why I sent my parents abroad, so I can breathe from them. I told my mum that I will get a wife soon, and I will keep telling her the same thing for as long as possible." "Wow, this issue is a serious one," replied Osita. "I have been bothered recently. I am grateful for all the Brotherhood has done for me. I don't know what would have become of me and my family if I didn't make this sacrifice. But as the years goes by, it is harder for me to be alone. My big houses feel so empty with no woman to call my own, no children to call me daddy. I don't know how I would live my entire life alone. Sometimes I wonder if I made a wrong decision choosing wealth over my own family." "Please, don't say that again, Osita. We owe the Brotherhood our life for all the riches they gave to us. They wiped the tears away from our eyes. They brought us out of poverty into wealth. I understand that we are men, and naturally we need a family of our own, but we made our decision, and we live with the choices we made. Osita interrupted. Obina, it is easier for you to say this, because you have other brothers, who are married and have children to continue your family name. Have you taught about me? I am the only son of my family. What will become of my family name? My sisters will eventually get married, and start their own families, and bear their husbands' surnames, and I will be cursed to die a single man, with no one to keep my family's name going. I am cursed to be wealthy and alone. Osita, put yourself together, and act like a man. Life is not a bed of roses, you know. We were born with wooden spoon, but now we have a golden spoon. Of course it is sad that we wouldn't have the privilege to pass down our riches to our children, but at least we can take care of our parents and siblings. I don't want you to let your emotions ruin everything you have worked for. Do you remember what happened 2 years ago to Joshua, our member? He decided to outsmart the Brotherhood by secretly marrying a lady from his village and going ahead to have a son. When the Brotherhood found out, despite all his pleading for forgiveness, he was struck with madness, and all his properties were confiscated by the government. Up till now he still roams this city a madman. I heard that the woman he married and his son are back to the village, suffering in poverty. Or have you forgotten what happened to Ola, also a member of the Brotherhood, who was a dedicated member, but he also allowed his emotions take control of him? Ola kept a pregnant lady in his house and pretended for months that she was his sister, whose husband abandoned her. He always didn't like anyone to visit his house. When one of the members of the Brotherhood, who had been suspecting him, came to his house and pretended to be his old-time friend, he met the woman, who he said was his sister. She let him into their house, believing he was Ola's childhood friend. She welcomed him, and she told him that she is Ola's wife and they were expecting their first child together. The case of Ola's betrayal was reported to the Grandmaster of the Brotherhood. And even though Ola begged for mercy, he was told that he would have to pay for his betrayal with his life. A mysterious illness befell him, and within a week he passed away. All his sacrifices was in vain. The Brotherhood seized all his properties, and his wife was sent into the street with no one to help her. So please, my dear friend Osita, be wise. The Brotherhood watches everything. They know everything that happens, and no one can outsmart them and go scot-free. Osita went back to his house, and he couldn't stop thinking about everything Obina had told him. Hearing the story again of what happened to the brothers who disobeyed the rules of the society really left him in fear. He remembered Isabella's beauty, her kind nature, and the thought of losing her to another man made him feel so depressed. That night Osita drowned his emotions in alcohol. He drank many bottles because he wanted to drink his pains away. The next day, Isabella called Osita. Osita was surprised at the timing. It was such a coincidence that he thought of her all through the previous night, and she called him today. Hi Osita, it's been a while. I have missed you, and I want us to meet up. Osita didn't know what to tell Isabella. He had missed her a lot, but he knew he had to avoid her, because seeing her would only remind him of his predicament. I am sorry Isabella, but I am busy with work. I have different business meetings to attend. I would communicate with you once I'm free. Isabella was disappointed, but she didn't complain. She wished him a good week, and they ended the call. Osita tried to occupy himself with his business projects. He also took a trip to relax. During his trip, he still found himself thinking about Isabella. She was everything he needed in a woman. He even imagined how it would be if he had a family with his beloved Isabella. It was a new weekend. Isabella dropped a Happy New Week message to Osita. She wished him a productive week, but Osita ignored her messages. She then called him because she was worried, but he also didn't pick or return her calls. Isabella felt bad. She didn't know why Osita would avoid her this way. She liked him, and his attitude towards her broke her heart. So Isabella decided that she was going to leave Osita because she didn't want to become a disturbance. After some weeks, Osita was at a park. He wanted to relax and enjoy nature when he felt a tap. When he turned around to know who tapped him, to his surprise, it was Isabella, looking very elegant. Osita couldn't help himself. He apologized for the break in communications. He came up with some excuses why he didn't take or return her calls. Isabella was skeptical, but she told Osita that she was willing to give him another chance to prove himself, so he agreed to make it up to her. Osita invited her on a date, and she accepted the invitation because she was still interested in Osita. After they met that day, it was the beginning of a new love story. They rekindled what they had going on. The couple couldn't stay away from each other. Osita always tried his best to be careful and made sure no one he knew from the Brotherhood saw them together. They always visited private places. One of their outings, Osita didn't realize that one of the members of the Brotherhood, Raymond, noticed him and Isabella all cuddled up together in a secluded corner of a fancy restaurant. Raymond was shocked to see Osita in such a compromising way with a lady. He knew the consequences of going against the rules of the Brotherhood. Raymond secretly took pictures of the both of them because he was aware that there was punishments for the brothers who hid information about those who were secretly involved in relationships, and he didn't want to be punished. So he immediately left the restaurant after getting some evidence of what he had seen. As Raymond drove to his house, he was contemplating if he should show the pictures to the Grandmaster of the Brotherhood. He didn't really have any connection with Osita, though they had exchanged greetings on their meetings. Raymond decided the wise thing to do would be to report the case to the Grandmaster, because he knew it would help him get the trust of the Grandmaster. The Brotherhood summoned all brothers for an urgent meeting at midnight. It wasn't the usual day of meeting, so when the brothers saw the message they were wondering what happened. But no one suspected the reason for the meeting would be anything serious. At midnight, all brothers were at the temple. Then the Grandmaster called out Osita to the middle. Osita was shocked to be called to the middle. That's when he was told that he was seen with a lady embracing and holding each other like lovers. Osita couldn't believe his ears. He denied the accusations and said nothing like that ever happened. You went against the Brotherhood rules, and you still have the right to deny it. You ungrateful fool. After all the Brotherhood did for you, when you came here, you had nothing. The Brotherhood made you who you are, and you had the audacity to break the rules. The Grandmaster told Osita to take a look at the magic mirror beside the altar. Osita was filled with so much horror when he saw pictures of him and Isabella in the mirror. Obina felt really sad for his friend because he knew there was nothing he could do to save him from the wrath of the Grandmaster. Osita fell to his knees and pleaded for mercy, informing the Grandmaster that he wasn't married to the lady. He told the Grandmaster how he stayed away from the lady, but she found her way to him, but all his begging fell to deaf ears. The Grandmaster said he was going to pay, and the price was going to be expensive. The Grandmaster told Osita that he was going to lose his sight in 3 days. This will make sure you don't have eyes to see women or even think of falling in love with them. Consider yourself lucky that I gave you a minor punishment because you didn't get married to her. If you went ahead to marry, I would have killed you for your betrayal. Osita was broken after hearing his fate. Obina came to meet him after the meeting. He embraced his friend and tried to console him, but nothing could make him feel better. Obina decided to drive Osita to his house. He didn't want Osita to be alone because he could harm himself if left with no one to watch him. Osita, please try to put yourself together. This is not the end of the world. I know it is not easy, but blind people can still live normal lives too. I tried my best to advise you not to allow your emotions take over you, but it is sad that you allowed love to make you weak. But try to look at the brighter side. You still have your wealth and your life. Everything will be all right. Just take life one step at a time. I will be here for you, my brother. Osita excused himself, and he went to freshen up and rest. In a room in Obina's house, Osita felt down and overwhelmed. He went into deep thought. He knew he loved Isabella, but he wished they never crossed paths. The thought of not being able to see his family or his reflection in the mirror made him very emotional. He burst into tears and fell asleep in his pool of tears. The next morning, Osita tried to put himself together. He thanked Obina for being there for him and for accommodating him. He told him he was ready to go back to his house. Obina informed Osita not to worry because he already sent his driver to pick up his car. Back at his house, Osita locked himself in his bedroom, wailing and crying. He couldn't bring himself to accept what was going to befall him. He decided to take a bath to make him feel better. On his way out of the bathroom, he noticed his sight was blurry and he didn't see the table in front of him, and he tripped and fell. This got him scared because he noticed that he was losing his sight. In that moment, he knew he had to confide in someone about his plight. He thought of telling his parents, but he remembered the distance from the village to the city was far. It was then the thought of Isabella crossed his mind. He placed a call to her and asked her to please come to his house, and he sounded very urgent. He sent her his address. In 2 hours' time, Isabella arrived at Osita's house. She was surprised to see him in such a broken state. "Osita, what happened to you? I was worried when you told me to come urgently. I had to take an excuse from work." "Isabella, I don't know where to begin from. Please promise you won't leave me. I don't know who to confide in." Isabella promised him that she will be with him, no matter what the problem was. Osita began talking. "The thing is, I got involved with some bad men who carried out fetish practices. And I went against their rules. As I am talking to you now, I can barely see you properly." Osita broke into tears. "I am losing my sight. That is the punishment for my disobedience." "Oh my God, Osita, I can't believe it. This is a very unfortunate news. Please stop crying. No matter what happened between you and this bad men, they are not your God, and they have no right to take your eyesight." Isabella tried to console Osita, and she helped him put himself together. "Osita, I believe in God, and I know He can heal you. You just have to have faith. I have a powerful pastor who can pray for you. His name is Pastor Moses, and he is a true servant of God. A lot of people with different challenges have testified of how God used Pastor Moses to heal them. I believe he can help you too." Osita was desperate, and he agreed to follow Isabella to see her pastor. He was also scared of what would happen if the Brotherhood found out his plans, but at this point he didn't care what happened anymore. They both agreed to go see her pastor the next day. Isabella spent the whole day with Osita. She ensured he ate his food and she prayed for him. It had been a very long time since Osita last prayed to God, but when Isabella prayed for him, he felt peace and he was calm. Isabella also tried to cheer him up by telling him jokes. In that moment he was happy that he had someone as caring and loving as her. The next day, Isabella helped Osita get ready for them to go see the pastor. She had already set an appointment with him the previous day. When they got to the church, Isabella led Osita into the church. It was counseling time, and they had to wait a few hours to see Pastor Moses. When it was their turn to meet the pastor, they went to his office. Pastor Moses was a decent-looking man in his 40s. "Sister Isabella, how are you doing, and who is the young man beside you?" said the pastor. They all exchanged greetings, and Isabella introduced Osita as her close friend. "What do you need the Lord to do for you, Mr. Osita?" said the pastor. "Sir, I am losing my sight, and I don't know what to do. Isabella told me that you can help me regain my sight. Please, sir, I need your help. I don't want to go blind. I will pay any amount of money to regain my sight." "Mr. Osita, I don't need your money. Your money cannot save you. What you need to have is faith. I am just a vessel used by God. You have to believe He can restore your sight. I can sense a dark cloud over your head. There is a yoke that has to be broken before you can be free. The Spirit of the Lord is telling me you are hiding a big secret. You have to confess your sins to God and ask Him for forgiveness so He can heal you completely." Osita replied, "Pastor, I am a sinner, and I don't know if God can ever forgive me. For many years my family and I suffered in poverty. With no one to help us, we had to do menial jobs to survive. Even though we worked so hard, we continued to live from hand to mouth. I was about to lose my mother to a leg injury because of lack of money, but through the help of a friend I was introduced into a cult, which was the source my riches. But it came with a big price. I couldn't get married or have children of my own. If I did so, I would die. So when I went ahead to date someone, I was struck with blindness by the grandmaster of the cult. Please, Pastor, help me, beg God to forgive me and heal me. I am ready to serve Him." At that point, Isabella was shocked and surprised. It was then she knew why Osita had been avoiding her all those time. She also felt bad because she realized Osita was in this condition because he chose to love her. Pastor Moses began speaking. "Osita, no matter how big your sin is, the Lord will forgive you. The Lord has a good plan for you, and He will heal you. We are going to conduct a 7 days powerful prayer and fasting, and I know the God I serve will deliver you." He then prayed for Osita. and told him to come the next day with some of his belongings, because the prayers and fasting will commence, and he will be expected to stay in the church for 7 days, because he needed to seek the mercy of God without any distractions. On their way back to Osita's house, Osita apologized to Isabella for hiding the truth about the terms of the cult. "I understand, if you want to leave me, I wouldn't be angry at you." Isabella responded, "I won't lie, all I heard today was a lot, but I won't leave you. I genuinely love you, Osita. You are a good man who made wrong decisions to help your family. You sacrificed your sight for me, so I will be by your side." Through thick and thin, they both embraced each other. Isabella advised Osita to place a call to his parents to come to the city because she had a project she was assigned to lead at work the next day. But she promised to take him to the prayer section before going to work. Osita placed a call to his parents. They were worried to hear their son's predicament, but they told him they would be on their way to the city the next day. Early the next day, Isabella took Osita to the church so the prayer session can begin. She had to leave immediately for work, but she assured Osita she would come join the prayer after work. Mrs. Adana and Mr. Amaka were already on their way to the city to come see their son. Mrs. Adana was praying for her son at midnight before they embarked on the journey. They put a call across to their son telling him they would be with him soon. Osita's parents arrived in the afternoon and they went straight to the church Osita directed them to. When they arrived at the church, they saw their son in the middle of a prayer session. They immediately joined the group to pray. After 30 minutes, the pastor ended and called for a break. Mrs. Adana and Mr. Amaka went to meet their son. "Osita, my dear, can you see me? Your father and I are here for you," said Mrs. Adana. "Mummy, I am so happy you and Daddy came. No, I can't see you, I am blind, but the pastor told me I will be healed, and I believe in God." "How did this happen to you, Osita?" asked Mr. Amaka. "Please, Mummy and Daddy, forgive me. I am so ashamed of myself. Some years ago, when our family was suffering from poverty, as the first child of the house, I couldn't stay and fold my arms and watch everyone in financial lack, so I joined a cult that gave me all my wealth. I went against their rules, and they struck me with blindness." Mrs. Adana burst into tears while Mr. Amaka felt so bad. "I am sorry, my son. I failed you as a father. I am sure you wouldn't have joined any cult if I did my role as a father and provided everything you, your siblings and your mother needed." Mr. Amaka felt disappointed at himself. Osita was so emotional. "It is okay, Mummy, Daddy, I thank God for another chance. I am very grateful for everything you both did for me and my siblings. Even with the little you had, you both provided for the family, and I pray the Lord continues to bless you both. Please, I know you are both tired. Go to my house, freshen up and rest. I will be here in church for 7 days fasting, praying and waiting on the Lord." "Okay, my son, we will go to your house, drop of our things, prepare and come back," said his mother. "It is well with you." Few hours later, Isabella finished from work. She came straight from the office, and she joined the prayers. At evening, Osita's parents came back to the church. They brought food and fruits for Osita to break his fast. When they arrived at the church, they were directed to the room Osita was given to rest. They found him talking to a young lady. Through their voices he knew his parents were back. "Welcome back, Mum and Dad. Thank you, Osita. We brought food and fruits for you." "Who is this beautiful lady?" asked Mrs. Adana. Osita responded, "This is my girlfriend Isabella, the woman after my heart. She has been taking good care of me." His parents were happy to hear this. He had never introduced a woman he was interested in to them. Osita's parents thanked Isabella and blessed her for taking good care of their son. Isabella was happy to meet Osita's parents. The next few days of the prayers, Mrs. Adana lived with her son in the church, observing the fast and prayers with him all through. Isabella always came to join them in prayers after work. She also observed the fast with them. Mr. Amaka was recovering from a sickness he had in the village, so he couldn't fast because he was on medication. But he always prayed for the healing of his son. During this trying period, Osita and his parents decided not to inform Amaka and Ife what was going on with their brother because they didn't want them to be worried and have to leave their work and studies to come see Osita. On the 5th day of the prayer, Mrs. Adana cried and prayed for her son all through the night. She asked for the mercy of God over her son. She anointed him with the anointing oil Pastor Moses gave her, and then she went to sleep. In the morning Osita woke up and he saw a very bright light in his room. When he blinked his eyes, he immediately noticed he could see again. He screamed in joy. God had finally healed him. His mother hurried into the room. "Mummy, I can see. Come help me thank the Lord." Mrs. Adana was so happy she embraced her son and thanked the Lord for healing him. Pastor Moses came to celebrate with Osita and he told him his deliverance will be permanent. He advised him to go and sin no more. "Now, Osita, you can go ahead and marry any woman of your choice, because the evil yoke has been broken." He also told Osita that he had to leave behind everything that was gotten from the evil realm. This meant he had to leave his cars, mansions and businesses behind because all of it was gotten from an evil way, and the only way he could disconnect completely from the cult was by letting go of everything he got from them. Osita was once again faced with a tough decision to make, but he was grateful for another chance at life. He wanted to dedicate his life to God and live in peace with his family and his woman. He had faith that God will bless him with riches that comes with peace and doesn't give troubles or afflictions. Osita called Isabella and his father to inform them about the good news. They immediately hurried to the church. They were filled with joy and they thanked God for healing Osita. The church was filled with so much joy, and everyone was happy for the miracle God had performed. Osita's parent returned back to the village filled with joy for the miracle God did for their son. From that day on, Osita became a child of God. He asked for the help of God to start up his life again. He decided to start over in a new city. Isabella wanted to be part of her boyfriend's humble beginning, so she asked for a transfer from her place of work. She was granted the transfer. Osita and her relocated to a new city. With the help of Isabella, Osita was able to start up a new business. Though it was nothing big, but God always helped him get favors from his clients. He continued to expand his business slowly but steadily. The entire Amaka family and Isabella's family joined together to plan the wedding of their children. At that moment, Osita felt like a fulfilled man. He had no regrets of choosing love over wealth, because true happiness came from having a clear conscience. He was blessed to have a loving wife and family of his own. A year after Osita and Isabella got married, Dr. Amaka, the first daughter of the Amaka family, and Dr. Daniel tied the knot in grand style, with Ife the last-born as the chief bridesmaid. Their parents blessed the union. The Amaka's family was indeed a family blessed by God. They endured the hardships of life, faced great storms, and conquered them all in victory.
Hello, our amazing subscribers, and new subscribers to come. I hope you enjoyed our suspenseful and mind-blowing episode 2. Please share with us the lessons you have learnt from this story in the comment section, as this will help us connect with every one of you. We truly appreciate your support. Please share, like and subscribe to this channel for more entertaining stories. We love you.